Hi, I'm just going to introduce you today to one of my favorite foiling patterns. I like to call it the face framing highlight. I love to use this technique when I'm brightening up a balayage. It gets them coming in every 8 weeks instead of 8 months because that's a whole lot better for our finances, right? And then I also like to do it to introduce people to color, to give them just a few highlights to brighten up around their face. And in saying that, it's also a really great technique to use when somebody's been going a little darker for the fall and they're ready to start brightening themselves back up for spring. You'll step on up, I'll show you the sectioning. So one of the most important things to me about coloring is sectioning. How the hair lays on the head is how the color is going to lay as well. So I like to make sure that I know where the crown is going to split for this. And then I take my first section just underneath where that crown is splitting, down to the mastoid process. Same on the other side, just underneath the crown, down to the mastoid process. Next, I'm going to take a subsection from inside our first section. Just underneath the parietal ridge. And again on the other side. So the next thing I'm going to do is place foils in around the face, giving her her money shot. I usually like to use 2 different lighteners for this. Today I'm using Aloe Pod and 20 volume and Cream lightener and 10 volume. So I take a very fine section, not quite be able to read a newspaper through, and do a fine baby light. When placing the foil in, I like to follow the curve of the head with the tail of my comb. And I'm going to start by loading product a little lower down, holding my brush horizontally. Now I'm going to feather the lightener up, holding my brush vertically. On thicker hair, I'll do 2 back-to-back foils around the face. On finer hair, I'll do 3. So today we're going to do 2. The first foil was Pod and 20 volume. The second foil is going to be Cream and 10 volume. This just helps to add a lot of dimension to the highlight. Again, loading on the product with a horizontal brush, feathering up with a vertical. and continuing this on around the head. As you can see, I followed around the hairline, placing 2 foils with baby lights at the hairline, starting off with my Pod and 20 volume, my cream and 10. So our next section is going to start getting into highlighting the sides. This is going to be diagonal, moving diagonally through the subsection. With this, all depending on how heavy you like the highlight, you want the highlighted look, is all depending on how much distance you'll leave between each subsection. Today we're just going to do 1 inch. Here's where I really like to start to put in a lot of dimension. I'm going to use a very fine slice fine enough to read a newspaper through. This foil will be my cream and 10 volume. Again, still horizontal, moving into vertical to feather that product up. Leaving it 1 inch in between that and my next section. Then taking a very fine weave, again, just a nice baby light. For this, I'll use my Pod and 20 volume. Next section, 1 inch again. And this will be our fine slice. So now I'm moving into my top section. I always like to make sure that this section, these 2 top sections, are on the part line. If they change their part line, I come totally diagonally straight across the top. If they have a part line, I'm going to go diagonally from this section. Today we have a middle part. Starting again with my fine slice. I continue on up this section. So now I'm going to come up in the same pattern diagonally up through the sections on the other side, keeping with the fine weave and the baby light. So now that I have her all foiled up, I'm not going to bore you for 45 minutes talking about myself, my dogs, the weather in Atlanta, even though it's pretty beautiful, Joanne. I am actually going to show you an after picture of a model that I had, and it's actually Eufora's own lovely Faith. And she was my model for a blonding class in Phoenix, and I actually got to do this technique for everybody there. So I'm gonna let you see that after picture, and if you want the formulations for that, I actually have them on my head sheet.